All it took was one bad investment, one client's lawsuit, one storm of betrayal that swept through his company like wildfire. Within a month, he'd lost his business, his apartment, and the woman who'd once sworn she loved him, through everything. The night he got the eviction notice, he packed a single bag, some clothes, a few books, and a framed photo of his late mother. That photo was the only thing that made him feel human anymore. Every morning since, he'd carry it to the park, wipe the raindrops from the glass, and whisper, "I'll get back up, Mom. I promise." But deep down, the promise was starting to sound hollow. The city didn't care about broken promises. It didn't care about the man who once signed million-dollar deals but now waited for strangers to toss spare change into a cup. Days blurred into nights, and nights into endless cold dawns. He'd tried finding work, any work. But every time they asked for an address, he hesitated. Every time they saw his disheveled appearance, they moved on. He'd started to believe that once the world saw you fall, it wanted you to stay down. One morning, as the sun barely rose through the gray clouds, Nathan wandered to a small diner on the corner of 5th and Main. The smell of coffee and butter filled the air, teasing his empty stomach. He stood outside, watching people laugh inside, construction workers, nurses, students. Normal people, people who belonged. He looked down at his reflection in the diner window. Unshaven, eyes sunken, he barely recognized himself. Just then, the door opened, and a waitress stepped out carrying a tray of leftovers toward the trash bin. "Hey," she said softly, catching him staring. Her voice wasn't harsh or suspicious, it was warm, almost gentle. "You hungry?" He hesitated, pride catching in his throat. "I'm fine," he lied. She tilted her head, unconvinced. "Doesn't look like it. Hold on." Before he could protest, she disappeared inside. A moment later, she returned with a takeout box. "Here," she said, handing it to him. "Turkey sandwich, fries, and coffee. It's on the house." He blinked, unsure what to say. People didn't just do things like that for him anymore. "I can't." "You can," she interrupted with a smile. "My name's Ellie. Come by anytime. We always have extra." For a moment, he just stood there, feeling something he hadn't felt in months, seen. Not pitied, seen. He sat down on the sidewalk, opened the box, and took the first real bite of food he'd had in days. It was warm, and with each bite, something inside him, something that had gone cold, started to flicker again. Later that evening, he returned to the diner. Not to ask for food, but to ask if she needed help cleaning up. Ellie laughed softly. "You don't have to do that. I want to," he said. "Please." And so, he swept floors, collected plates, wiped tables. For the first time in months, he worked again. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt real. At the end of the night, Ellie pressed a few dollars into his hand. "For your help." He shook his head. "No, really, take it," she insisted. "You earned it." That night, Nathan sat in the park with a full stomach, a few dollars, and something new, hope. Tiny, fragile hope. Days turned into weeks. Every evening, he showed up at the diner, cleaning, running errands, fixing small things. He had once managed millions, now he was fixing coffee machines and unclogging drains. And strangely enough, it brought him peace. One rainy night, Ellie found him sitting alone, staring at the rain through the window. "You ever tell me your story?" she asked. He gave a tired smile. "It's a long one. I've got time." So he told her, about the company, the lawsuits, the betrayal, the fall. About how he used to believe kindness was weakness. And how, when everything was taken from him, all he wanted was for someone to look at him like he was still worth something. Ellie listened silently, her eyes never leaving his. "You know," she said softly, "maybe losing everything isn't the end. Maybe it's just the part where you learn what actually matters." He looked down at his hands. "And what if I've already failed that lesson?" She smiled faintly. "Then it's time for a retake." That night, her words echoed in his head as he lay beneath a streetlight. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was the test before the rise. The next morning, Nathan used the diner's Wi-Fi to start applying for jobs again. Not big ones, just something steady. But every application ended the same way, "We'll get back to you." Until one afternoon, Ellie came running up, breathless. "Hey, there's a community startup event downtown tomorrow. Local businesses, tech people, some are hiring. You should go." Nathan laughed bitterly. "Ellie, I don't even have clothes that fit for that kind of thing." She crossed her arms. "Then borrow mine." He raised a brow, and she laughed. Okay, not literally mine. But my brother left some old suits in the back. I'll fix one up. Just go, Nathan. Please. The next morning, he walked into that event wearing a clean suit for the first time in months. His heart pounded as he stepped into the conference hall, surrounded by confident professionals. When his turn came to introduce himself, he hesitated, but then something clicked. He wasn't that broken man on the bench anymore. He stood straighter, voice steady, as he explained his experience, his downfall, and what he'd learned about resilience. People listened, not with pity, but respect. One of the startup founders, a young man named Carter, approached him afterward. "You've got guts," Carter said. "I like that. We could use someone who knows failure, and how to rebuild from it. Come by my office Monday." As Nathan left the hall, his chest felt light for the first time in a long while. He walked straight to the diner, where Ellie was waiting anxiously. "Well," she asked, eyes wide. He grinned. "I think I just got my second chance." Her face lit up. "See, I told you." He laughed softly. "You did. You were right." He paused then, looking at her, the woman who'd handed him food when no one else would even look his way. "Ellie, I don't think I'll ever be able to repay what you've done." She shook her head. "Just promise me one thing. When it's your turn to help someone else, don't hesitate." Nathan nodded slowly. "Deal." As the rain began to fall again outside the diner, Nathan realized it didn't feel cold anymore. It felt cleansing, like the world washing away what was broken, leaving room for something new to grow. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he'd lost everything. He felt like he was starting over. And this time, he wasn't alone. Nathan's first day at the startup felt surreal. Gone was the man hunched over a park bench, unsure if he would survive another week. Now he walked through sleek glass doors with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in months. The office buzzed with energy, people brainstorming, typing furiously, and discussing ideas with animated gestures. Carter, the founder, greeted him warmly. "Glad you could make it, Nathan. I've heard good things about your resilience. That kind of mindset is rare." Nathan nodded, trying not to smile too widely. Inside, however, he felt a spark, something long buried, igniting. He was no longer just a man who had fallen, he was a man who had been given a second chance. And he intended to make the most of it. His tasks were small at first, organizing client data, reviewing financial reports, sending emails, but Nathan approached every task with precision and dedication. He remembered every harsh lesson from his downfall, the importance of integrity, humility, and hard work. Every success, no matter how minor, felt like a victory. Weeks turned into months, and Nathan's determination did not go unnoticed. Carter called him into his office one morning. "Nathan, I've been watching your work. I think you're ready for a bigger challenge." Nathan's heart raced. I'm ready." Carter smiled. "I want you to lead a new project, one that could change the trajectory of our company. You'll need to manage a team, pitch to investors, and make key decisions. Are you up for it?" Nathan swallowed hard. It was more than he had dared hope for, but he remembered Ellie's words, "When it's your turn to help someone else, don't hesitate." He straightened his spine. "I'll do it." The project was grueling. Late nights, endless meetings, and countless obstacles tested him. But Nathan refused to give up. He remembered the days of hunger, the sting of rejection, the feeling of being invisible. Those memories fueled him, pushing him past exhaustion and doubt. One evening, after a particularly long day, he returned to the diner to grab dinner. Ellie greeted him with a warm smile. "You look exhausted." Nathan laughed, though it was hollow. "I am, but it feels good. Like I'm alive again." Ellie handed him a cup of coffee. "I'm proud of you. You've turned everything around with just your effort and heart." Nathan looked at her, a surge of gratitude welling up. "I couldn't have done it without your kindness. You gave me a chance when no one else would." Ellie waved her hand dismissively. "I just fed you a sandwich." "No," Nathan insisted. "It was more than that. You reminded me that I was worth something. That someone still believed in me." For the first time, Nathan realized that this simple act of kindness had been the catalyst for his entire comeback. A meal, a word of encouragement, a gesture that required almost nothing from Ellie had sparked a fire that nothing could extinguish. The following months were a whirlwind. Nathan led the project with relentless energy. Investors began to take notice. The team, inspired by his resilience and leadership, gave their best work. And slowly, the company began to flourish. One morning, Carter called Nathan into his office again. "Nathan, it's official. The project's investors have approved full funding. Your vision is going to scale globally." Nathan's chest swelled with pride. He had clawed his way back from the bottom, and now he was not just surviving, he was thriving. That evening, he returned to the diner with a grin. Ellie looked up from the counter. "Big day," Nathan nodded, holding up his phone, showing her the news. "It's happening. The project is going worldwide. We did it." Ellie's eyes sparkled. "I knew you could do it. I never doubted you for a second." Nathan laughed, but his voice cracked with emotion. "You gave me the first reason to believe in myself again. I'll never forget that." Days turned into weeks, and Nathan's life transformed completely. He moved into a small apartment, not luxurious, but warm and welcoming. He bought new clothes, reconnected with old friends, and even began mentoring young professionals who were struggling in their careers. Each time he did, he remembered the park bench, the cup of coins, and the sandwich that changed everything. One evening, he walked past that same park bench. The rain had returned, soft and gentle this time. Nathan paused, remembering the countless nights he had sat there, feeling invisible and hopeless. He placed a hand on the bench, silently thanking it for being a witness to his fall and eventual rise. Later, at the diner, he found Ellie stacking chairs after her shift. He walked up to her, holding a small envelope. "For you," he said, pressing it into her hands. Ellie opened it, revealing a generous bonus. Her eyes widened. "Nathan, you didn't have to. I wanted to," he said. "For everything you did for me. For that sandwich, for believing in me, for giving me a second chance when I had nothing left. You changed my life." Ellie smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm just glad you're alive. And thriving. That's all that matters." Nathan paused, looking around at the diner, the people, the life he was rebuilding. "It's more than just being alive. It's about giving back, about helping others rise when they fall. I learned that the hard way." Ellie nodded. "And now it's your turn to pay it forward." Nathan grinned. "I plan to. Every chance I get." Months later, Nathan's project became a global success, earning recognition and awards. He was invited to speak at conferences, where he told his story, not just of failure, but of the one act of kindness that had changed his trajectory. People listened, inspired, moved. He reminded them that no matter how far you fall, a single moment of compassion can spark a transformation that nothing else can. Nathan never forgot the park bench, the paper cup, or the sandwich. He never forgot Ellie, and he carried that lesson with him every day, that kindness, no matter how small, can ignite the rise of someone who thought all was lost. One evening, as he returned to the diner, a young man sat on the sidewalk outside, eyes downcast, shivering. Nathan walked up and smiled. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and handed the young man a coffee and a sandwich. "Here," Nathan said softly. "Someone once gave this to me when I needed it most. Now it's my turn." The young man looked up, astonished, tears welling in his eyes. Thank you." Nathan smiled, feeling the same warmth he had felt months ago. "Just promise me one thing. When it's your turn, don't hesitate." As he walked into the diner, the city lights glimmered through the rain-soaked streets. Nathan had lost everything once, but one act of kindness had sparked his rise. And now, he was determined to make sure that spark never died, not in him, and not in anyone else who needed it. Because he had learned the greatest lesson of all: no matter how deep the fall, hope and humanity can lift you higher than any fortune ever could. And Nathan was ready to rise, again and again, for the rest of his life.